Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So when new cards are revealed, well, yes, there's a ton of excitement around them, but especially for those players out there that have, well, certain commanders that just got massive upgrades. With all that said, let's jump into it. I'm going to be going through some brand new cards like Smile at Death and talk about what the perfect commanders are for it. What commanders are just chomping at the bit to get it. It's an enchantment for 5 mana in white. Well, the Smile of Death and other cards too. Wait for those as well. Enchantment for 5 mana in white. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a counter on each of those creatures. So this is, well, a powerhouse of an enchantment that gives you absurd value. I mean, think about a card like Palace Siege, which gets you back, a creature card out of your graveyard back to your hand, essentially. So that is one that could do that. This is like, oh, no. Reanimate 2 creatures. Yes, small creatures, but also they get slightly larger too. When it comes to commanders that this immediately can make a massive impact for, let's talk about Alesha, who smiles at death, the 2 power or less commander. A 3/2 warrior for 3 mana in, well, Mardu essentially. First strike, whenever it attacks, you may pay Orzhov. Orzhov, if you do, return target creature card power 2 or less, you give it the battlefield, tap that attacking. This is yet another way to say, okay, the deck already functions in this way where get creatures in graveyard that have small power, and all of a sudden, now this says, instead of just getting 1 back per turn, yes, tapped and attacking, I'm going to be getting basically 3 back per turn, because I'm getting 2 for free off of my fantastic new card, Smile at Death. So yeah, one that works perfectly for that, especially when it comes to like certain tutors that you might have to actually get things in the graveyard, like Buried Alive. Yeah, it can be absolutely fantastic. Next up, yeah, even Sithis Harvest Hand should be considering this. If you have a Sithis deck out there, make sure you're checking that deck to see just how many creatures in that deck have power 2 or less. There's going to be a good amount for a good amount of Sithis decks out there because a lot of like Enchantress type creatures are very low powered. So this is a way to say, oh, okay, just cheat back out some, creatures for free out of the graveyard, and some of those are going to be enchantment creatures too, so then you're actually going to be gaining, consolation effects as well, and of course, it's an enchantment itself, so you just get to, when you cast enchantment, you gain 1 life, draw a card. Awesome, there you go. So it's an enchantment that does fill that. Again, not for every Sithis deck, but a major upgrade for the decks that, again, look through your list and be like, oh wait, I've got like 30 creatures in here that have like 2 power or less. Wow, okay, well yeah, I guess I do have a lot of Enchantress type creatures, and that's quite a ton. Next up though, Sovereign Oganek Ahu. Now this one is one that cares about counters in a way, but also just kind of like different power types, and also maybe having a go wide strategy with a lot of small creatures and then growing them. A 3/4 cat noble with ward 2 for 4 mana in Selesnya. Whenever it attacks, for each creature you control power greater than that creature's base power, put a number of counters on it equal to the difference. This one just hypercharges this commander. Smile of Death says, you know what? Okay, again, with those small creatures that maybe got dealt with, maybe got in your graveyard in one way or the other, all of a sudden, you get them out now for free. They already start with a counter on them, so actually, when you attack again, you get to start building that up. It kind of skips one of the steps that you have with this commander, again, with a go-wide type small creature strategy with it. Finally, Teysa Karlov, Aristocrat-style commanders can definitely consider this powerhouse of a card. A 2/4 Human Advisor for 4 mana in Orzhov. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, triggers twice. On top of that creature token, you control Vigilance and Lifelink. That's nice. Again, most importantly though, double up your death triggers. Death Harmonicon, basically. So yeah, you get that creature fodder in play. Those creatures that you actually care about sacrificing and getting back, essentially. Like, okay, sacrifice. Awesome, you're in the graveyard. Okay, I get 2 back, because again, a lot of those creature fodder pieces have very low power. Again, check your Teysa list. You might have a ton of creatures in there. You're like, oh wait, yeah, that's got 2 power or less. Oh, that's got 2 power. Oh, Gary? Yeah. So all of a sudden, you have so many creature fodder pieces, and also Gary that you keep getting back too, but being able to just bring them back out, again, by sacrificing them, you're essentially getting like 4 death triggers. So there you go, because Smile at Death's like, hey, take 2 back. Teysa's like, oh, sacrifice those. Yeah, times 2. Thank you. So yeah, Smile at Death is a fantastic powerhouse card for the right deck out there. It's not one of those where it's like, oh, it's a staple, throw in every single deck out there. No, it is not, but it is an amazing card for the right strategy. Again, we talked about, well, Aristocrat style. We talked about go-wide strategies with small creatures. We talked about, well, just small creatures in general, like Alesha. And then also, even Enchantress builds, depending on the build as well. So it's a card that can definitely make a massive impact right away. Moving on, though, we've got Mox Jasper, a card that, well, is very unique because there's only so many Mox out there that are actually legal in Commander. in basically many formats out there. A legendary artifact for 0 tap, add 1 mana of any color, activate until you control a dragon. Now, this is one where I don't necessarily think that every single dragon deck is just going to shove it into their deck, because dragons tend to be a little higher on the mana value side, typically. That being said, there are specific dragon commanders and also some unexpected commanders you might not think about, too, that you're like, oh, wait, technically dragon? Yeah, so, of course, changeling type decks out there that utilize a bunch of changelings, low the grounds especially, there you go. You could very easily, like, oh, turn 1 play a changeling, oh, I've got my Mox out, it can tap for 1 mana of any color, because that changeling is technically a dragon as well. Also, I guess, like, Urza type decks are like, any kind of artifact that costs 0, maybe. There's definitely better choices for that, but still, you could consider it too. That being said, there are certain dragons out there like Corlessa Scale Singer, where it's like, oh yeah, just toss that in the deck right away. Again, that Mythic's probably going to be decently expensive, but this is a very budget-friendly commander itself, being 17 cents. That being said, 1/4 Dragon Bard for just 2 mana. You look at the top card of your library at any time. Cast dragon spells to the top of your library. Again, this is a very odd mana rock where, again, it can be super early, activated, and good to go. Or, yeah, like turn 4, you're like, okay, I guess it's just been in my hand or in play, and it doesn't do anything. But with this commander, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, guaranteed turn 2, basically. I'm getting my commander out. I get my mana rock out. It's auto-free mana for me. Again, perfect mana fixing for you as well. Omo, Queen of Asuva, though, definitely one to consider with this. A 1/5 Shapeshifter Noble for 3 mana in total in Simic. Enters the battlefield or attacks, put everything counter each up to 1 target land, up to 1 target creature. Each land with everything counter on it is each land type. Each non-land creature with an everything counter on it is every creature type. Basically, it's a changeling, which means that essentially, again, it's also a dragon, meaning that Mox is activated as soon as you get this commander out again, because enter the battlefield or attack, right away you are getting that. So all of a sudden, yay, dragon, yay, Mox, yay. Next up, Razor Claw. Again, there aren't too many low-to-the-ground dragons out there, but this is a Vishino Warlock that does work with dragons and helps you get them out super quickly. A 3/3 that has Menace for 3 mana in Rakdos. Tap at 2 mana any combination of colors, only to cast dragon creature spells. And then once you reach your turn, cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard and cast it, Gazelle's die, it goes away. Okay, anyways, basically what this is, again, is a giant mana dork for you to get dragons out. So, if you are ramping properly, if you're able to get this out, if you've got low-to-the-ground dragons as well, you can get dragons out quite quickly with this one. And yes, perhaps most importantly, the Dragon is a good example of one that definitely might be considering this. A 10/10 for 9 mana. Yeah, you're not counting on getting your commander out to get the Mox Jasper activated. Eminence, as long as it's in the command zone or on the battlefield, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 to cast. Flying, giant attack trigger, cheat permanents into play. That being said, what matters is, that cost reduction just auto applies all the time. It's like starting off with a ley line in the command zone, just like, oh yeah, I just get free cost reduction for my creatures. Great, good for me. So of course, there are certain dragons out there that cost, well, again, like even say 4, now it just costs 3, making that Mox Jasper much more likely to get out earlier, to be able to give you mana earlier. Again, look at your list, kind of see like your balance of it. You also probably have other cost reducers too for your dragons as well. Yeah, when it comes to your dragon list, some will like the Mox Jasper, some will not, but it can definitely be a very impactful card for the decks that absolutely need it. And again, some unexpected ones as well, like Omo, where it's like, oh wait, changelings. Yeah, actually a dragon. Yeah, why not? Moving on to Barrensteppe Siege. Yeah, the sieges are back in a big way. Now, multicolor. Enchantment for 4 mana, and Orzhov is enchantment answer, shoots Abzan or Mardu. Abzan at the beginning of your end step, put a counter on each creature you control. Mardu at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died you control this turn, each opponent sacrifice a creature of their choice. Now, with this one, again, you have the option, you have that flexibility. There are going to be certain decks that actually care about both, and are going to be like, oh, okay, actually, this is better in this scenario, this is better in the other. When it comes to like a counter strategy or a go wide strategy, that's great. But also, yeah, maybe aristocrats in there a little bit also. It's kind of like a mini Dictate of Erebos with that Mardu side. So yeah, it can be a good way to deny your opponents of creatures, but also a way to build up your army too. So building and taking down seems like, Abzan and Mardu. Alenda the Duskgroves is a good example of both. Whenever a creature control dies, you get a counter on Alenda. When Alenda dies, you get X vampires in play, where X is Alenda's power. Those vampires have lifelink too. Now, being able to essentially, again, say, oh, okay, cool. With the first activation of this, the first chance, the first Abzan part of this, you're like, oh, okay, cool. If my commander pops all of a sudden and goes wide, yeah, I get more vampires because I'm building up more counters on that with this. And of course, with those vampires in play, I'm just doubling up their power and toughness right away on that first time that triggers. Just going from 1-1s to 2-2s. Of course, obviously, building up more and more power for your team, that is absolutely huge. But of course, again, this is the type of commander where you're going to have a bunch of creatures in play and creature fodder. And actually, your commander, in a way, is kind of creature fodder to you. We're like, okay, get large, sacrifice, pop, lots of creatures. Great, good for me. So you're going to have some sacrifice outlets in there, or at least like village rights type cards. And by doing that, you could be like, oh, wait, you know what? My opponents have some really tough creatures in play. Instead, when I get the siege in play, I'm going to choose Mardu instead for that kind of dictative Erebos light version. Next up, attracts the Praetor's Voice. When it comes to actually getting counters on things, yeah, Proliferate obviously works incredibly well with that. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, keyword soup right there at the beginning of Barrensteppe, Proliferate. So yeah, being able to just get a single counter on all your creatures, there are certain things that you just do that with in this kind of a deck. You're just like, okay, I've got these ways to ensure that I'm always getting counters on my creatures. Because when I proliferate, then I have extra value from it. If I don't have a counter creature, I'm losing out on that. And by stacking these M-set triggers in the way, you're like, okay, instead of getting one counter, now I get two on everything. Next up, Police Reverent Medium. Beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 spirit creature with flying, where X the number of tokens you created this turn. Again, this can help out in multiple ways. You're going to have a lot of creatures in play, obviously. There are also certain strategies with this one that do involve some sacrificing, or at the very least, again, village rights type cards, because you've got so many creatures, essentially. So, yeah, that Dictative Erebos kind of side could actually work with this. That being said as well, again, just like, okay, end step, I make a bunch of tokens. Immediately, I get them to be stronger. Instead of just 1/1s with flying, now they're 2/2s with flying, which makes a massive impact. Speaking of impacts again, Edgar Markov, yet another Eminence commander. But if you cast another vampire spell, if it's in the command zone on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. First strike, haste. Edgar Markov attacks you to counter each vampire you control. This is definitely one to consider for the right Edgar Markov deck. I'm not saying every single Markov deck out there. Essentially, though, again, it's like, all right, you know what? I'm going super wide, super fast with a lot of vampires. If the situation is right, I'm going to get this in play, choose Abzan, and just start building up those counters. I don't even need my commander in play to start building up counters on them to make them even more impactful. But again, if the situation's like, oh, actually, that player over there has got some massive creatures, let's actually maybe, make it so that when my creatures die, they gotta sacrifice some things as well. So there you go. Again, this is a card that is flexible, can fit in a lot of different kinds of decks out there, but when it can really apply to a deck, like in both ways, that's where it's really gonna shine and be absolutely massive. So yeah, Barrensteppe Siege, a very, very good card for the right strategy. Next up, we've got a card with a very ironic name with Stormscale Scion. Get it? Anyways, a 4/4 dragon with flying for 6 mana in red because the Stormscale, with the, mechanics. No. Okay, anyways. Other dragons you control get ++1, and it's got Storm, so when you're casting it, you copy it for each spell cast before it this turn, copies become tokens. This is a card that is like, you know what, we're going to take a relevant tribe, and we are actually going to make it into an Anthem that can just grow depending on all of your storming off. So, there are some specific strategies that want this. I mean, obviously, just right away, it's like, okay, all right, let's just spoil it. Dragon. There you go. Dragon Tribal, yes, is going to want this card. The right kind of a dragon deck as well, especially Dragon, where it's like, okay, you get cost reducers out there, including just your free one from the command zone to give the Dragon, and all of a sudden you're casting multiple spells in a turn, and then you just play Stormscale Scion, and you're like, okay, cool, I get like 4 copies of it. Great, my dragons are massively pumped, and the Stormscales are pumping each other as well. That being said, yeah, a Storm deck could consider this for a finisher as well, potentially. Birgi, God of Storytelling. 3/3 God for 3 mana in red. Whenever you cast a spell, add red. Till turn, you lose that mana steps and phase's end, and ignore the whole boast thing. But basically, what this is going to be doing is, it's a ritual effect for every single one of your spells. So when you're casting something, you get mana for the next spell, and then mana for the next spell, and then mana for the next spell. And of course, there are some very easy infinite combos as well, like Grinning Ingus. That's like, okay, I cast an infinite amount of times. Oh, awesome. Now I just cast my Stormscale Scion, and if I have a haste enabler, I just win from there. It can be like a kind of lesser storm win condition, essentially, in a way if you're not looking for like, okay, I just auto win with Grape Shot. It's like, okay, I want to at least build some tension on the board. Like, okay, I stormed, and I've got 5,000 dragons in play. All right, does anyone have any responses until the end of next turn? Let's go. But yeah, haste enabler obviously can just win you the game right then and there, or like an Impact Tremors too. Yeah, or Rowan, Sign of War. Again, yet another kind of like alternative win condition for this one. 4/2 Wizard Menace for 3 mana in Rakdos. Tap spells you cast this turn that are black and a red cost X less to cast for X the amount of life you lost this turn. Only as a sorcery. This commander is absurdly powerful. Basically just, there are certain like life loss cards. You're like, okay, I'll lose whatever amount of life I want to lose. You lose that amount of life, and then you're like, okay, I'll tap this in. My spells cost 30 less to cast. Good for me. yeah, you're going to be able to storm off with that. And essentially, again, that Stormscale Scion being actually your kind of win condition could be a way to go about it if that's the way you're looking to go, instead of just like an Insanguate or whatever. So it is kind of like a, again, I'm not going to say auto-include in Dragon Tribal, but it is a very good card for the right Dragon Tribal deck out there. That being said, yeah, Storm is definitely a place where this can live as well as a finisher for you, as a very flashy, big, awesome finisher. So yeah, there's some strategies out there like, upgrade, thank you. Okay, next up, let's jump into certain legendary creatures that, again, when it comes to like newly spoiled cards, obviously the first thing you think about when you see a legendary creature is like, oh, how can I build around this? But also what you might not think about is, oh, this is actually perfect for this other deck. Yeah, Narset, Jeskai Waymaster is a very cool, very awesome design that can definitely make a big impact for the right deck out there. 3/4 Human Monk for 3 mana in Jeskai. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you cast this turn. So, yeah, I mean, okay, first up, very obviously, kind of just talked about right there, like Storm. If you are storming off, this can be a great way to say, oh, okay, cool, I stormed off, I got a ton of value, I didn't finish off the game potentially, but what's happening now is, well, I just cast like 10 spells, so yeah, let's just discard my hand and replace it. It's a great way to essentially like, in say a Kai card deck that might be storming off where you just make a ton of non-creature, cast your non-creature spells to make a ton of 1/1 spirits. Essentially, you can sacrifice your mana, I should say. Being able to just be like, okay, I go wide with a lot of things, I cast a ton of spells, and then I save up that mana for a big turn. So being able to do that, great, okay, I did that, and all of a sudden like, oh, okay, I'm out of a hand now. Oh, okay, Narset is a great kind of backup plan to say, oh, you know what, let's just replace that hand. Another kind of consideration for this one, though, would be something like, Brawlin, Sky Shark Rider, / Shabraz, we'll get to that one here in a second. Whenever you discard a card, you put a counter on Brawlin, 1 damage each opponent. You can also give a Shark Trample, which is just kind of funny if you're using other sharks in the deck, but you're probably not. That being said, Shabraz the Sky Shark, whenever you draw a card, put a counter on Shabraz, and you gain 1 life. So this is one where it helps out, again, in both ways. Being able to say, okay, actually, discarding my hand gives me a benefit. I can ping my opponents, and I probably have other ways to maybe double up that damage or whatnot, or maybe Brawlin has Lifelink, so I can actually, actually gain life from that as well. But on top of that, being able to be like, oh, okay, cool, I drew some cards, awesome, I get some more counters on this as well, and I gain some life with it too. That being said, yeah, Storm, no matter what kind of Storm that you're doing, it's a consideration for that. Also, the Infinite Prowess Dijin Monk for 5 mana in Jeskai. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast non-creature spells to the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, cast it on a flash. You got to be careful with this one where it's like, okay, you only include a certain number potentially of, creature spells essentially, because non-creatures where you want to be with this. That being said, you of course have many ways to manipulate the top of your library, ensure that you've got the right things on top. But again, when you are kind of going off, you're casting all these things, if you don't win, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm out of gas. This is the type of card that can be like, oh wait, no, I'm not out of gas because I'm going to draw 10 cards and I'm going to be great next turn all of a sudden. The Archimand Rate is yet another one just for a tribal kind of consideration for this one because Narset is a monk. Do keep that in mind. 0/5 Human Advisor for 5 mana in Jeskai. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain X life for X number of cards in your hand -4, so that can actually help with that too. Do keep that in mind. On top of that, though, whenever you gain life, each Advisor, Artificer, and Monk you control gain Vigilance, gets +X +0 until turn X the amount of life you gained. You can also tap them to draw a card. So again, just because it is a monk and it is one that has a heavy impact in a certain area, definitely consider it for that as well for the right deck out there. Again, when it comes to legendary creatures coming out, it's really exciting to think about how to build around them, but also make sure you're considering, yeah, what kinds of decks can they actually fit in, because Narset can be a powerhouse for the right strategy. Next up, Betor Ancestor's Voice. I love the design of this as a commander, and it does have a good amount of potential for the right deck out there in the 99 as well. A 3/5 Spirit Dragon with Flying and Lifelink for 5 mana in total in Abzan. Beginning of your end step, put a number of counters up to 1 target creature control equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. Turn to 1 target creature card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from the graveyard of the battlefield. Being able to, again, play with both of those sides is great, obviously, when this is a commander, but it's one where it's like you don't have to necessarily be like, oh, all in or one or the other, essentially, to include it in a deck where it can really work, again, with either life gain or life loss, essentially. So, again, when it comes to a commander with, like, life gain, like Bilbo Birthday Celebrant, a 2/3 halfling rogue that says if you gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead. You're going to have a lot of other life gain synergies in this. You're going to have a lot of ways to gain life repeatedly, like Soul Sisters type things as well. So being able to just gain a ton of life throughout the game on your turn, all of a sudden you can say, hey, Betor, put a ton of counters, again, like 20 counters, whatever it is, on something, make it absolutely massive. I mean, you can just put on Betor itself. Again, it's evasive with flying. It's got lifelink, so you can gain even more life with it, and then it can build into its own ability to just gain even more counters as well. And of course, Bilbo's just like, hey, yeah, you win the game basically if you activate this once you get to that 111. So again, Betor can actually help you get there too, so do keep that in mind. Next up, Shiko, I always think about Life Swaps deck, Alex deck, a 3/7 Naga Wizard for 5 mana in total. Obviously, this is Golgari. It is a partner commander, so you do need something that does have white as well. There's some really good combinations, like Bruce Tarl. Oh my goodness. Whenever creature control deals combat to a player, you gain life with a creature's toughness. Bruce Tarl gives, I think, lifelink and double strike as well, and that one's in Boros. So yeah, that is the combination I believe Alec uses, and I think it's like 20 life gained every single time you hit with Shiko then, which is just absolutely crazy. So being able to just be like, okay, yeah, I've got my Betor in play. I just gained 20. All right, awesome. I'll just throw 20 counters on this and then gain even more life and easily turn your commander to a one-shot KO with that. Definitely keep that in mind. Kenner the Return King, though, as well, another consideration. If you've got like a 5-color life swap strategy or just like a life gain synergy around Kenny, a 5/5 human noble that does so many things. Here we go. Red, all creatures gain triple and haste till turn. 1 in a green, counter target creature. 3 mana in white, target player gains 5 life. 4 for a blue mana, target player draws a card. And 5 in black, put target creature card from a graveyard in the battlefield and source control. It's pretty crazy. So again, like, this synergizes actually with, I would say, 2 or actually even 3 of the things in this where, all right, again, like, obviously, if you have target player gain 5 life, that's just like, okay, cool, get 5 counters on something just at the end step. Great. On top of that, obviously, again, if you are utilizing that reanimation out of the graveyard, you might have some ways to actually get the right things into your graveyard as well. So now your commander's like, okay, I lost some life. Cool, I'll get it on there as well. And then obviously the counter synergies that you might have too. That being said, you have a life swap strategy, you know, essentially like Shiko as well. If you've got that way to lose life, those ways like, you know, wall of blood type effects, you're like, okay, I'm intentionally going down in life and then swapping with someone, that's where Betor really shines and can do some massive things. So yeah, depending on the right strategy out there, again, you don't have to have both sides. You don't need to have both sides. You don't have to say, well, it works for this, but not the other. That counter strategy, again, life gain is one of the most popular strategies out there. And this can be a house for the right strategy out there because, again, it just kind of builds on itself. It's like, all right, okay, cool. I just gained a bunch of life. I played like Congregate or whatever and gained 20 life out of nowhere. Awesome. All right, put 20 counters on this. It's got lifelink next turn. I swing. I gain 23 life. I get 23 more counters on it. Lovely. Being able to get an absurd amount of counters on something can make it really deadly. And of course, gain you a ton of life for those strategies out there too. Moving on, we've got Shiko, Paragon of the Way. Again, these legendary creatures, the exact same, you know, thing I'm going to say, where, yeah, it's an incredibly exciting commander to build around, but also keep in mind the potential of it in the 99. A 4/5 Spirit Dragon Flying and Vigilance for 5 mana in total in Jeskai. When it enters, exile target non-mana card, mana value 3 or less for your graveyard, copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. And of course, a copy of a permanent becomes a token. Now, this one is one where, again, it's kind of like Sun Titan adjacent in a way, and it's 1 mana less. Now, it can fit in less decks, obviously, than Sun Titan can. That being said, like, if you've got a Blink deck that has this color combination, and you don't have, like, all just like, oh, they're all massive spells in my deck that cost more than 3. Yeah, chances are you've got a decent amount of low-to-the-ground spells, essentially, so being able to just play some of those for free on a Blink is huge. So being able to just get extra value off of that, go, oh yeah, I cast this for free. Okay, cool. That actually blinks my entire team again, like an eerie interlude type thing. So you're like, okay, cool. Chain things from now again and again and again and again, or like a clone type strategy, consider it as well with that. But yeah, this one, again, is one where you're doing things in a bit of a different way than Sun Titan, where, okay, you can't get lands back, but you are making token copies, which are slightly worse in one way, where if they get bounced, they're just gone forever. But essentially being able to, oh, okay, like, I've got this in play, it's a creature token, and I can populate it. Yeah, you can do some nasty things with that. That being said, if you've got, like, a Pramicon deck, you might want to consider it, where it's like, okay, Pramicon is definitely going to conclude, at least a lot of Pramicon decks that I know, a lot of blink effects and a lot of value to be had with them. 1/5 wall for 3 mana flying defender, enters the battlefield, choose left or right. Player may attack only the nearest opponent in the chosen direction. Planeswalker controlled by the opponent. So yeah, blinking it, make sure you reset that, which is quite nice, and change the direction if you need to. That being said, being able to just blink Shiko is like, okay, free value out of the graveyard, yes please. Zinnia Valley's Voice, yet another way to use and abuse ETBs. 1/3 Bird Bard for 3 mana in Jeskai flying. Plus X plus 0x the number of creatures you control, base power 1. Creature spells you cast of Offspring for 2. Now, making an extra copy of Shiko, obviously. Oh no, it's a legend rule, I only get to keep one of them. Yes, that's true. That being said, a lot of Zinnia decks have a good amount of populate effects in them, and by getting an extra copy of Shiko in play that is actually a token, yes, it's just a 1/1 instead of a 4/5, but that's okay. Now all of a sudden I can populate that again and again and again with something like Song of the World Soul and have an absurd amount of value out of my graveyard. Sakashima 1000 Faces, yet another one to consider as well. When it comes to that, again, like the clone type strategy, again, this is a partner commander just in blue. You need a partner that does have Boros for this. That being said, being able to say, okay, it's a clone type strategy where I can have this become a copy of the creature I control, except it's this and it has other abilities, but also the legend rules apply to permanents I control, so I can make extra copies of Shiko. Yeah, that is an absurd amount of value to be had when you were cloning it and getting things for free out of the graveyard as well. So again, you can think about it in some different ways, like, okay, clone, populate, blink effect decks can definitely consider this. It's a lot of value to be had for the right strategy out there. Moving on to Teval, the Barrensteppe, yet another Spirit Dragon thing, can be very impactful as a commander, and of course, incredibly impactful in the 99 as well. 4/4 Spirit Dragon flying for 4 mana in Sultai, attacks, mill 3 cards, you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield, tap whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. Being able to, again, with this, just, okay, repeat value just by swinging, that's quite nice. Getting lands out of your graveyard, great. Okay, that's some nice ramp there, which is great. And again, it just like if you have like one Evolving Wilds in the graveyard, this is just repeat, actual ramp for you, no matter what deck it is in, which is quite nice. That being said, yeah, ones that can really play with, like, okay, I already have some graveyard synergies, already have some, like, things leaving the graveyard synergies. You can get a lot of value out of making that army as well. I mean, first up, Muldrotha. Used to be on top of the world's most popular commander of all time. No longer anymore, still decently popular, though. 6/6 for 6 mana Sultai. During each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a permanent spell of each permanent type from your graveyard. Now, all of a sudden, again, Teval is helping you actively get things in your graveyard, helping you get things out of your graveyard, and when you use Muldrotha to get things out of your graveyard as well, you're making a 2/2 zombie druid creature token every single time you do so. So you can build an army in absolutely no time with this. Sidisi Brood Tyrant, speaking of building an army, you do it in a different way too. A 3/3 Naga Shaman enters the battlefield or attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever one of our creature cards are put in your grave from the library, you make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This is one where, yeah, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's highly unlikely that you ever miss a land with Teval when you're swinging with both of these, because you just stack it where Sidisi mills first, and all of a sudden you've got 6 cards milled now in total. You're bound to hit a land, essentially, and if you don't have an Evolving Wilds or a fetch land or whatnot, you're going to get to one eventually, so you'll always have a land for Teval. That being said, again, this one gives you creature tokens when you are actually milling those cards. Teval gives you them when things are leaving the graveyard, and there's going to be some graveyard leaving strategies as well with this too. So yeah, it is a way to take advantage of, again, like flashback type cards, things that can be bringing themselves back, and of course like zombie synergies too. If you've got like a zombie deck around this as well with self mill going on, some crazy things can be happening. Speaking of zombies though, Tormod the Desecrator. Yeah, if you've got a Sultai version of Tormod, again, it has partners, so yeah, if you've got like Tormod and any of the other Sultai, any other Simic commanders out there that are partnered, 4/2 zombie wizard for 4 mana. One of our cards leave your graveyard, create tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. Again, basically the exact same thing as Teval, where, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I have got these ways that not just like mass get things out of my graveyard, but individually, one at a time, get those things out of my graveyard and make a massive army. Again, basically doubling that up with Teval. On top of me, again, filling my graveyard with Teval and also ramping too. Finally, Tasker the Golden Fang, 4/5 Human Shaman, Delve. So Delve is a way to get things out of the graveyard, though that being said, you're still just getting 1 token off of that. That being said, pay 4 mana. In total, put the top 2 cards of your library in your graveyard. Turn a non-land card of opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. So this is one where, again, you are milling yourself. You're getting more things in your graveyard, which is great. Again, your opponents can't choose lands, so you are actually getting more lands in your graveyard as well for your commander. Not for your commander, for the card in the 99. But also being able to, again, when you get that card back out of your graveyard to your hand, Teval is going to trigger, and you're going to make that token as well. So it's a good consideration for that too. Again, Teval is just like, hey, ramping, repeat, and then also token generation for the right strategy. It is a lot of value to be had for the right commander deck out there. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on this one. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.